This is Maya. She's with me. Breaking you out was my plan, so you're welcome.
Did you spot the difference? Eagle-eared... No, wait. Bat-eared? Eagles don't have good ears, do they? Well-eared Call of Duty Zombies players have noticed that Peck sounds a little bit different in Black Ops 6 Zombies.
Who the hell are you?
And after the Season 1 Reloaded update, he's not the only one.
It is. I have scraped all Project Janus files classified.
Successful candidates will read and follow file instructions to the letter. And boy, do I feel super pedantic today. I could tell you what to do, but it's way more thrilling if we're both on this wild ride together.
This is a story of AI, huge corporations, actors, unions, and why I think the whole thing is a lot less dramatic than people are probably making out. So join me for a dive into ethics and AI. I'm sure you've got opinions on this topic already if you've clicked on the video, so maybe just wait, listen to the entire video through first, and then let me know what you think in the comments below. And of course, if you enjoy this and you want to see more conversations like this, don't forget to like and subscribe. Now, I do want to flag up that I'm obviously not an expert on this topic. I'm not a video game developer, I'm not a voice actor, but I'm pretty sure after seeing a few other takes on it, that after doing an hour's research, I know a little bit more than a lot of people do. So here I'm trying not to talk too much about just what my gut feeling is about all of this, but I've got sources, I've got quotes, I've got screenshots, so you can make your own mind up too. I do know Scandal does really well on YouTube, and if I made this a bit more dramatic, maybe the video would perform better. But I really think there's a lot less scandal here than you've probably been led to believe. I'm not a fan of huge corporations and mega rich CEOs, but I'm even less of a fan of misinformation and stoking hatred for clicks. Just a little bit of critical thinking goes a long way. Also, before you drama hounds get frothing at the mouth, this video isn't a response to Milo and Mr. Waffle Waffles. I did see his video title and thumbnail come up on my recommended, and I already knew I wanted to make a video about this, so I chose not to watch it. I often do this when someone I know makes a video about a similar topic because I don't want to end up just copying their points or copying their sources and things like that and just making the same video, especially with people I respect, where I probably would, because I'd be like, oh, that's a really good idea. So by all means, go watch his video too. I haven't seen it yet. This isn't a response to that. This isn't like Geeky Pastimes calls out Milo. I haven't seen his video, so I've got no idea what he was saying on a topic. Just calm down. But right, let's get started. Let's get into the meat of this. So some people have reported this incorrectly, but Peck was actually replaced. Peck's a Zombies character, by the way, in Call of Duty Zombies. Peck's voice actor was replaced between Black Ops Cold War and Black Ops 6. So Black Ops Cold War came out back in 2020, and then Black Ops 6 came out this year, 2024, and the voice actor for Peck is different. The other character that had their voice actor replaced is maybe a little bit more important, and I think to big hardcore Zombies fans, really important, and that's Samantha Maxis. So Samantha Maxis in the older Black Ops games was a really important character, even though she was a little girl in pretty much all of it. And I know some, like, you know, big hardcore Zombies players are saying like Samantha Maxis has always been the main character of Zombies. And, you know, I kind of disagree with that, but I get it. She has been an important part of it, even if in the older map she wasn't really in it very much because, you know, she was a little girl and trapped in a pyramid on the moon for quite a while. But she is an important part of the lore of it. And then in Black Ops Cold War, she was undoubtedly the sort of central figure in that. So she's the one that triggered all of the events of D Machine, even though she wasn't there during that. She was in Firebase Z. That's who we were rescuing in Firebase Z. At the end of Forsaken, massive deal. You know, her getting sucked into the Forsaken or into the Dark Ether, kind of then getting sucked into a giant big ball. It was a weird situation, but she was a very important character. And then in Black Ops 6, she's actually not in it because she's still a central character in terms of the characters talk about her a lot and how they want to try and rescue her from whatever happened at the end of Forsaken. But Samantha Maxis herself as a character isn't in it. Instead, there's an AI called SAM that's been developed using her personality or her consciousness. So it did have her voice. That was, a part of it. And there's also an Aoife side Easter egg on Liberty Falls, and that was also voiced by the same actress originally, but it's not anymore. So both of these actors, Peck and Samantha Maxis, so that is Zeke Alton and Julie Nathanson, respectively, they've both been replaced. So they have different actors now. So Zeke Alton was replaced before Black Ops 6. Peck has just had a different voice actor from the beginning of Black Ops 6. I'm not sure why some people are saying that he's been replaced since Season 1 Reloaded. He confirmed on Reddit over a month ago that it's definitely not him in Black Ops 6 at all. He's not credited in that game at all. Interestingly, neither of the two new actors are credited as far as I know, which is a little bit weird. I don't know how that's happening. I don't know why Peck hasn't been credited, but anyway, that's a thing. But then, strangely, Julie Nathanson, who was the Samantha Maxis voice actor, who did do lines for Black Ops 6 for the SAM machine and for Aoife, she has been replaced since the Season 1 Reloaded update when Citadel de Morts came out. They didn't just do new lines for the SAM machine on Citadel de Mort. They actually went back and removed her lines from the previous two maps and, the SAM machines on both of them, and the Aoife statue in Liberty Falls, and replaced her with a different actress. Again, uncredited, a little bit weirdly. But the reason they did that was because both of those actors, Zeke Alton and Julie Nathanson, are part of a union that can't currently reach an agreement with Activision, and it's all about AI, basically. They're part of a union that is in a dispute with Activision about AI. And for a lot of people, that's a simple, easy case. Like, you've got the good people who are voice actors and unions, and you've got the bad people, that's Activision and AI supporters. Very easy to see who to side with there, very easy to see who to be sympathetic towards, especially against the backdrop of Activision increasingly using AI in other areas like artwork. But as always, the real situation is a bit more nuanced, a bit more subtle. There's less of an obvious good guys and bad guys in this. And to be honest, I don't think anyone's really doing anything wrong here. It's just a kind of sticky situation that's led to some contractors not being rehired for certain jobs, which I don't think is all that shocking. So let's explain. The union involved is SAG AFTRA, or the Screen Actors Guild American Federation of Television and Radio Artists. Couple of things to note there. First of all, it is just for American voice actors, so there are lots of other voice actors in lots of other countries, like in England, where I'm from, and they cannot be a part of that union. It's not like a choice thing, it's just they are only representing American actors. I guess it's because, American employment law is different, etc. So there's lots and lots of voice actors around the world who aren't represented by this union. They only represent American actors. It's also worth noting they're not just for video game voice actors. They represent actors in general. So they'll represent people who are in film and television, radio even. They represent lots and lots of different types of actors. As a union, they do what unions do. They represent their members collectively. So they decide what's best for the members, by having normally votes and things like that and elected representatives within them. And then they encourage all the members to band together so they've got a little bit more negotiating power. Instead of it just being like, oh, I'm not going to hire that guy because he wants this. Instead it's, if I don't agree to that, I can't hire anybody from that union, which can be a big problem for a company. So it gives members of a union a little bit more kind of leverage in negotiating. So they consider a broad range of issues that affect actors and their ability to find work. And they obviously want to protect those members' best interests. Right now, they've been talking about lots of different issues to do with AI. They also deal with loads of other things. It's worth noting that SAG AFTRA, this isn't like their big thing right now. If you look at their press releases and stuff like that, you actually have to search a bit to find all of that much information about this. It's not like this is the big thing affecting actors right now. It's just one of the things. And one of the ways they're concerned about AI is actually something that I never heard about before, where they're talking about decision making from producers. So obviously when people are making films and making video games, making TV shows, they have lots of creative decisions to make, And, you know, there's some directors and some producers that will go on an artistic sort of path where they'll try and make the very best piece of art they possibly can and make decisions based on that. Some people are trying to make as much money as possible. That's obviously what a lot of people will be doing. And some of these companies are now starting to use AI for that kind of decision making. So they're doing things like, okay, feed all of this information into a computer, use machine learning and think, okay, who should they cast for this type of role? Or which films, which projects should be greenlit based on the current economy and things like that. And, you know, the union is starting to look at things like that and saying, is that okay? Is that something that our members are happy to support, happy to be a part of? But that isn't the issue that's being talked about with this. That isn't why those 2 voice actors have been replaced in zombies. The issue that they've gone on strike with about this is all to do with AI being used as sort of generative AI, making voice lines for people that they didn't originally record, or using AI to transform a performance that someone has recorded and use it in other ways to what was originally intended by the actor and by the people that hired them. So the union's been negotiating with a specific group of named companies. I think there's like 10 different production companies, and it includes EA, Disney, Take-Two, Warner Brothers Games, and of course Activision. This isn't the first time they've been at odds with them. As recently as 2016, the union went on strike against this same set of companies, and that was about the voice actors not being given secondary compensation. So say if you do voice acting for a game that's got quite a small budget, not expected to do that well, and you get paid a relatively small amount for that, and then the game absolutely blows up and makes, you know, billions of dollars, they went on strike saying, well, the voice actors should then be compensated, you know, secondary compensation, saying, oh, the game's actually made a huge amount more money. The voice actors should now get a percentage of that, because there'd been some few situations where that had happened. Like voice actors had been paid very little money for a game that went on to make huge amounts of money, and they were saying that wasn't very fair. And also about the developers not sharing enough information about what would actually be required of a voice actor. So you can imagine something like someone at a development studio says to a voice actor, hey, we'd like to offer you a job where you're going to be doing a bit of narration. And then the voice actor turns up and they're expected to do loads of like grunts and squeals like they're being murdered or they're fighting, and they don't feel comfortable with that, but they've signed a contract to do it. That sort of thing. That's what they went on strike with before. The new strike happened on July 2024, that's when it started, and it states that any company looking to hire SAG AFTRA members must sign onto an agreement that offers AI protections to the voice actors. So it's a new interactive media agreement. Basically, there's kind of contracts that the production companies must sign with the voice actors that are set up kind of by the union. The union decides on a lot of the rules, so all the members agree to it, so they all get kind of paid a similar rate, they all get similar kind of working conditions and things like that. And anyone who wants to hire someone from that union has to sign that agreement to hire them. An example of the new contract is up on the screen now, and it basically says that if you are planning on using AI to create a digital replica of an actor, or you're going to use generative AI to create assets like new voices or characters using footage or recordings from a voice actor that you've hired, you need to let them and the union know when you post a job offer, and you need to arrange compensation or pay for those generated voice lines. So if a specific voice actor is connected to a character, and then you use generative AI to kind of create new voice lines for that character in the future, you have to pay the original voice actor as if you'd rehired them to record new lines, even if the actual original voice actor didn't come into the booth and didn't actually record anything, wasn't really involved at all. There's a bit more to it than that, but we'll get onto that later. You can see why actors want this though. It protects them from being replaced by AI. Lots of voice actors are very worried that as AI improves, and I know there'll be people saying, oh, you know, generative AI is terrible, it sounds so hollow and stuff. Bear in mind how quickly AI has been progressing. That won't be true for very long. And I'm pretty sure the unions and the development studios and the voice actors are all very aware of that this isn't really about the quality of AI voice acting. It's about the principle of it, the kind of idea behind it at all. So actors are worried that they could get replaced by that. And this ensures that they at least get paid for their voice being used, even if they're not actually called in to do the recording. So it kind of protects their income. You know, if they are attached to a character, if they have done work for a character, even if it's AI being used to generate new voice lines for that character, they'll still get paid for that work, even if technically they're not actually having to do any work. In some ways, could be better for some people. So, you with me so far? It all sounds pretty reasonable what the actors are demanding, what the union is demanding. Actors get hired, companies sign an agreement. If they create any new footage based on an actor, they will let them know beforehand, pay them for the new footage, and another thing I didn't mention before, they have to get consent for that new piece. So say if someone records some voice lines for something, and then a year later, because of games as service and stuff, games going on for a long while, they decide that they want to use that character in a slightly different way and they're going to generate new voice lines for it, they actually have to get consent from the original actor to say that that's okay. The original actor can say no and say, no, I don't want my voice being used for that. And again, that's pretty reasonable because you could understand some situations where they sign up for something that's very respectable and then it's getting used for something that would maybe bring their reputation into disrepute. Suddenly their character is being used as a crazy Nazi murderer, someone doing something horrible, and they're like, whoa, I didn't sign up for that. That's not the sort of character I wanted to play. That sort of thing, it can protect them from that. So in theory, this all protects them from, say, a company hiring a voice actor, doing an afternoon's recording, doing a few hours in a recording booth to get all the stuff they need for their generative AI, going on to use that footage to generate insane amounts of new footage, maybe, for multiple games, without having to rehire that actor, get them in for recording, or pay them at all. Or even consult them, so they could do crazy things. Like I said, like putting that actor's voice into scenes that they wouldn't feel comfortable with, that could harm their reputation, and they could do that without letting them know or paying them. So you can see why lots of people are on the side of the voice actors here. It all sounds very reasonable. However, Activision, amongst those other production companies listed in this, are currently refusing to sign that agreement, or they're at least trying to negotiate that agreement, meaning that they need to currently hire new actors who maybe work outside the US, so aren't a part of that union, or just actors within the US who aren't a part of that union, so they can still get voice work done without needing to break the union's rules. The Call of Duty, Activision, whoever, Infinity Ward, Raven, Sledgehammer, Treyarch, they can't say to the people in the union, oh, I know you've got this going on, but can you just do this? Like, they're respecting the union's rules, so they're just saying, okay, we need to do something different. We're not agreeing to your terms at the moment, so we're going to hire somebody else. We're going to hire somebody from a different country or someone who's not in the union. So this is why the voice actors for Peck and Maxis, Z. Colton and Judy Nathanson, seem to have been replaced. So what's the deal with Activision? What are they playing at? Well, first of all, and I understand a lot of this will sound callous, defending a corporation's views or representing a corporation's views, but I think it's important to kind of see both sides. It's worth remembering that voice actors are a relatively small part of the production of Call of Duty. Even for major characters, like people who are like the main character within a franchise, like Frank Woods. He was replaced just before Black Ops Cold War. They swapped out the voice actor, and the voice actor actually spoke about it. The older voice actor spoke about it, saying like, yeah, at Treyarch, a lot of the people who he knew, who he used to work with, don't work there anymore. It's a different team now who don't know him, so they just never called him. They just hired somebody else. It wasn't some big scandal. It wasn't super dramatic. It was just, oh, these new people don't know me, so they hired someone else for that job. It's something that happens quite a lot. And within Call of Duty, this idea of the voice actors being like intrinsically tied to the characters, like the guy who does the voice of Price, I know is always doing, what's his name, Barry something, or the person who does the voice of Soap. I know they've been very closely linked to it, and sometimes the marketing has lent on them a little bit, but I don't think it's that unusual in video games, even games as big as Call of Duty, for them to just cast who makes sense at the right time. And that might be to do with cost, it might be to do with availability, it might be to do with who they want to work with. Maybe the developers and the people doing the casting have existing relationships with somebody, maybe they don't. There's tons of different things that go into that decision. And I don't think it's ever been a really big deal for Call of Duty to just recast someone if it makes more sense. Additionally, voice actors are only normally involved in the production for a game over a few days. They're obviously used a lot in marketing and things like that because voices, resonate. They're kind of the ways you connect to a game. but they're not really involved in production. They're not full-time employees of the studios. They don't work for like Treyarch or anything like that. They're contractors, so they get hired for a specific job. They'll come in, record their lines. I assume quite early on in development, because then they can do all of the animation, the lip syncing, and everything like that later on. But they come in for a little while, and then they'll come back and do some marketing and stuff like that. They're not hugely involved in the creation of the game in the same way as the full-time developers are. Now, this obviously doesn't mean that Activision has a right to treat them badly, but it does make some of SAG AFTRA's demands a little bit more difficult for them to work around, or a little bit less reasonable for them to work around. To use actors from that union, Activision needs to be able to clearly state when they hire them, which, as I said, could be quite early on in a game's production, how they're going to use the recordings in the future, to what extent they're going to use AI with them, whether that's generative or otherwise, and commit to not only paying them for any future lines created by generative AI as if they'd been recorded in the booth, but also give them the right to withdraw their consent to use them. Now, you can imagine how that could cause problems for something like Call of Duty, something that is a live service. There's constantly new content and modes and events going on. I imagine over the course of the 3 years it takes to create a Call of Duty game usually, there's probably tons of changes to the game from when they've hired the voice actors and recorded the lines to the game finally coming out. So when they put out those job offers and when they hire the voice actors, they might not know exactly what they're going to be used for, exactly how they're going to be used. So they might not know the content modes, maps, events that might be added in the future, and they might want to involve those characters, but then get put in a situation where the voice actor not only has control over how their voice could be used in them, but also how that character could be used. There's something in the agreement that specifically says if a voice actor is tied to a character, like Julian Atherton with Samantha Maxis, that then leads to problems with them in the future, that if they want to use that character, the voice actor has a lot of say over how that could get used. And that's quite a difficult thing to agree to for, a big production like Call of Duty. It's a lot of control to give someone who isn't really a part of the studio. If Activision want to be able to hire a voice actor to provide a voice for a character and then be able to play around with that, generate new voice lines in future for incidental things, like for example, a new perk gets added to zombies that they didn't expect to add, or a new monster type gets added, and they don't want to have to schedule new voice sessions, or they want to be able to use the characters in new ways in the future, like Lego Fortnite suddenly being a thing, or the racing game in Fortnite. I imagine a lot of the people who worked on Fortnite originally didn't expect those things to blow up. Call of Duty could do the same. Maybe there'll be a Call of Duty kart racer next year and they want to use a load of those characters, and they wouldn't be able to do that with the existing characters if they signed these new agreements without having the consent of everyone involved, which is a lot of voice actors. There's a lot of people end up doing voices for Call of Duty. So that means it would be easier for Activision just to hire someone who isn't a part of this union than someone who is. It would be much easier for them to, if they had two people in front of them, one of them comes with all of these terms, all of these things that are going to bind them in the future about how they can be used, and one of them doesn't. I think it's reasonable to understand why they might pick the person that doesn't come with all of those agreements. Now, I know the general take, because corporations are bad, I know the general take is that Activision just want to rip off the actors by getting them into the record enough lines to train a generative AI, and then they want to use that in perpetuity without ever paying the voice actor again. But I don't think that's what's happening, or at least I don't think there's enough evidence to say that's what's happening or that's what's going to happen. A spokesperson for the group of developers who is negotiating with the union, because they're all kind of band together, this person's called Audrey Cooling, if you want to look up the thing she said, is, "We have already found common ground on 24 out of 25 proposals, including historic wage increases and additional safety provisions. Our offer is directly responsive to SAG-AFTRA's concerns and extends meaningful AI protections that include requiring consent and fair compensation to all performers working under the IMA," which is the agreement, the Interactive Media Agreement. These terms are among the strongest in the entertainment industry. We are disappointed the union has chosen to walk away when we're so close to a deal, and we remain prepared to resume negotiations. So, although this is corpo speak, and they're obviously trying to make themselves look good in the same way that the union is trying to make themselves look good and easier to empathise with, it just sounds like negotiating is ongoing, but the details of that compensation and that consent is obviously causing a problem. There's something that they don't agree on in that. But neither side is saying exactly what it is. So a lot of people are just speculating wildly. A lot of people are just saying corporations must be as bad as possible and the voice actors must be as good as possible. Whereas the reality is probably just somewhere blurry where it's like, okay, they can't quite agree to how they're going to do this compensation, or they can't quite agree to exactly how much control the voice actors would have over something that their voice was used in. And that's what they need to negotiate over. And that's not that dramatic, that's not that unusual, that's not one side doing something wrong. It's just that makes sense that both of them have different things that they're looking for. Of course, the developers want to retain as much control as they possibly can, and they want to pay as little as they can. They want to get, the best deal for the work that they want. And the actors want to keep as much control as they possibly can, and they want to get paid as much as possible. That makes complete sense. No one's in the wrong there. It's just about them trying to find a way to work together, or they don't work together. And so, like I said, it just sounds to me like a normal business negotiation. The actors would, of course, be aware that by being a part of the union and going on strike, there's a chance that the companies will just choose to hire other people. And so it's the actors' jobs to kind of make themselves seem as irreplaceable as possible. And so you could understand them saying like, oh no, this is a travesty, we need to do this, because it puts them in a better negotiating position. As it stands, with something like Call of Duty, the voice actors aren't in a great position because they clearly can be replaced. They replaced Woods with very little outcry, with very little impact on sales or anything like that, really without any impact on the quality of the game. And now they've replaced Peck and Maxis, and I don't think it's made much of a difference, to be honest. Personally, as a gamer, someone who's been really enjoying Black Ops 6, especially Zombies so far, it hasn't affected my enjoyment of the game at all that Peck is a different voice actor, or that now the Aetheretta statue sounds like a different person, or the SAM machine sounds like a different person. I wasn't that attached to Peck or Maxis in any way. As much as I know people are like, oh, Samantha Maxis, super important to Zombies. Adult Sam hasn't really been in it for very long. She was in it for the Black Ops Cold War stuff. But she wasn't like one of the main characters that we were playing as or anything like that, unless you chose that operator, I guess, in Black Ops Cold War, because that didn't have a set crew. But you know what I mean, like, it's not like that was a fundamental part of it, is these actors are the most important thing. I can't really think of any video game characters ever where if they recast them, I would be like, oh, well, I can't enjoy this anymore. Even, you think of, like, what's his name? Judge, who does the God of War voice. Such an iconic voice. That is incredible voice, incredible performance. I could still imagine them recasting him and it being fine. Like, it not being that much of a problem. John Marston in Red Dead Redemption, or Ellie in The Last of Us. I think, like, you could replace any of those people and the games would be fine. Maybe some people would be like, oh, I preferred the old voice actress. That's fine. Some people would prefer the new voice actress. That's fine too. It's not something that's going to stop me playing it or stop me enjoying it. And I think Activision know that, which is why maybe the voice actors don't have as much leverage as they would like to have. I really think the sort of core of the issue is just much less dramatic and scandalous than it's been made out to be. And I don't even think the people who are involved in it, the voice actors themselves, seem to think it's that much of a big deal. Specifically that Zeke Anton isn't in this year's Call of Duty, or that, Julian Nathanson isn't playing Samantha Maxis now in Black Ops 6. It doesn't seem to be something that they're shouting from the rooftops about, that they're drumming up loads of support for. It's just kind of a part of their job. These negotiations are just a part of it. In business, there's always that constant push and pull between employers and employees or contractors. And as consumers, we're not really privy to all of the negotiations. We don't know how much the voice actors are asking for, like how much pay they want, how reasonable their demands are. We don't know what the companies are demanding. We don't know what they're putting in the contracts. None of that is public. So speculating about it just can kind of make you look a little bit stupid. I think the truth is, it doesn't seem to be very dramatic. It seems to be quite normal. And we don't know a lot about it. It's all kind of shrouded in mystery. But that doesn't obviously stop us from having an opinion about the idea behind generative AI being used for voices. In terms of a philosophical point, do you think that's a good thing for gaming in future? Do you think that that's something that, could be used in film and TV and stuff like that? That's something I think anyone can have an opinion on, and you can think about it and come up with. But just with this specific situation, with this specific company and these people, I don't think we know enough to just start a witch hunt and say, oh, down with Activision, they're ruining Call of Duty because they've replaced these 2 voice actors. I think the reason it's probably tugged on a few more heartstrings than it normally would is just that because they're voice actors, it's a little bit easier to feel a connection to them. There's that human connection slightly, and want the best for them because, they're connected to the characters in your mind. If you weirdly care about Peck, I don't know why people would care about Peck, but if you do, I can understand people seeing, Maxis as like a hero and wanting good things for her, but I can understand you connecting those voice actors to those characters. But it is also worth remembering, I'm not saying, oh, you can't feel bad about both, but Activision Blizzard just in September announced that they were laying off 400 members of staff, not contractors who, occasionally do jobs in Call of Duty, but also do a load of other work for Disney or whoever, but people who work there, like that was their job. And they were just laid off because of poor decisions of management or, the economy and stuff like that. That, to me, is a much bigger issue that maybe doesn't get as much attention because they're not voice actors. The people who design what these characters look like or how they move or how they interact with you, or the people that are writing these stories are maybe less visible, but those people are losing their jobs too. And in, I would say, a much harsher way. So let me know in the comments what you think about all this, and if you like this style of video, because, when people say that, I make more of that kind of video, and if I don't get many comments, I don't make that more of this kind of video. And look out for another video coming soon talking about the images that are used in Call of Duty. They're definitely using some generative AI, and I have some thoughts about that. I think that's a much trickier situation. So let me know if you want to see some more about that. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and I'll see you for the next one. Goodbye.